I want to welcome everyone who has joined us for, I think, the first ever virtual Sunday evening AngelMD Pitch Club. And our thought is that this is going to be fun. This is going to be interesting. We're excited to have 5 startups here tonight that are going to do 5-minute pitches with 4 slides maximum, and then 3 minutes for Q&A, followed by the opportunity for all of you who have joined us to rate these startups. We're going to do this for 2 reasons. 1, we want your feedback on what you think of these companies. And 2, we want to provide that feedback. We know you're the clinical experts, and we would love to provide that feedback to the companies. So we're super excited. I want to introduce our AngelMD team here tonight. So I'm Katie Richardson, and I am the Executive Director of Clinician Membership. So I'm super excited to welcome you. We have Tobin Arthur, the founder of AngelMD. We have Mike Raymer, the Chief Strategy Officer for AngelMD. We have Mark Freumsen, Dr. Mark Freumsen, who is our Chief Medical Officer. We have Lisa Taylor, who is our co-CEO of Investments. And Jennifer Arthur, who is the co-CEO of Membership, is unable to be with us tonight, but she can't wait to hear how it goes. I don't see Bob Velez with us, but he's our head of corporate development, and Mike Szymanski is on the call here as our head of financial operations. And then Ramsey Jalad, who is our head of institutional investments and in Europe and the Middle East. So as I mentioned, we have 5 companies here to pitch tonight. We're going to do a couple polls too. We want to keep this fast-paced. We're going to make it fun. And we would love to hear from you. So again, companies are going to present for 5 minutes. After that, you are going to have 3 minutes to ask your questions. We would love for those questions to be put into the chat. And we will go ahead and ask the CEOs and founders those questions. And then we're going to give you an opportunity to rate these questions. So our poll number 1, just so you have an idea of what this looks like, we would love for you to answer these questions. This is just, again, to give us an idea of who's on the call. How did you hear about us? All that good stuff. And what you think is going to happen in the field of orthopedics, which is super exciting as well. So we'll give people a couple minutes to do that while you're answering the poll. The other thing that I'm going to do is put a link to our Google form. This form is where I want you to rate the companies. I'm going to give you 2 minutes between each pitch to fill out this form. It is literally a total of 6 questions, I believe, and I would love for you to rate all 5 companies we have with us tonight. And like I mentioned, I'll give you the opportunity to do that. Again, please rate each of the companies that we have presenting. All right. So we've had a few people fill out our poll. If you haven't already, take an opportunity to answer the questions in the poll that is up there. And then we'll go ahead and get started with our first pitch. All right, we have 18 voted. Anyone else want to give their opinion on our first poll?
Poll is down.
All right, fantastic. We've closed the poll. So we're going to start with our first company tonight, and we have Kirill Susloparov. Hopefully I didn't butcher that too badly. And he is with a company called Mesomax. And I had the opportunity to speak with Kirill and one of his clinical advisors, which was super interesting. So I hope you all find this interesting as well. So go ahead and share your slides and we'll get started with our first pitch. All right, just so you know, as we said, you have 5 minutes. I do have my timer started, and so I will give you the big old gong if you go over.
All right, that's totally fine. All right, everybody see my screen?
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Great, fantastic. So, hello everyone. My name is Kirill Sustoparov, and I'm a CEO and the founder of Mesomax. Mesomax is a small molecule company with a focus on developing a drug that accelerates fracture healing and osteogenesis in general. Among 8 million fractures in the United States every year, there are 600,000 fractures associated with healing difficulties. These fractures are the most expensive ones to treat and representing a $9.2 billion market just in the US alone. Currently, there are limited treatment options available for improving the rate of bone healing and bone fracture repair. They are expensive and have a limited value to risk radius. For example, the only parenteral drug indicated by FDA to treat non-union fractures is recombinant human bone morphogenetic protein, which has a number of serious side effects, some of which led to highly publicized lawsuits. Another options includes parathyroid hormone-based drugs, which clinicians have to use off-label, as these are not approved for fracture healing. And finally, stem cell therapy, which is still in the development stage and have an inherent risk of uncontrolled differentiation and proliferation. And additionally, standards of care are not meant for long-term use. Hence, Mesomax developed a uniquely designed new calcium polygluconic complex, MMX701, using patent-protected environment-friendly technology. And what MMX does, MMX701 directly modulates intracellular calcium signaling, bypassing extracellular hormonal or cytokines signal pathways. And this new entity accelerates osteogenesis by safely increasing osteoblast activity and inducing accelerated the intramembranous ossification pathway. MMX701 is well protected with a solid patent coverage in several countries, including the United States and the EU countries. And also company owns patents and substantive know-how. To confirm the efficacy of MMX701, we carried out a substantial number of animal studies with more than 1,200 animals involved, which were performed in the US and abroad. And during these studies, we saw a significant difference in fracture healing score of MMX group, along with a twofold increase in the trabecular thickness induced by MMX701. And some studies also showed that the administration of MMX701 can increase the bone healing process up to 2 times faster. But our drug is not only efficacious, it is also safe. To show safety, the rats were treated with the high doses of MMX, and the test group did not show any damages of tissues of internal organs. So, but what truly differentiates our molecule versus the vast majority of comparable stage preclinical compounds is the abundance of observations made in clinical settings that demonstrated both clinical effectiveness and safety of MMX701 in humans. And those studies were the inventors initiated academic studies with the participation of 1,082 patients total. including 645 patients administered MMX701. All these were conducted in non-US regulatory environment. But our lead indication is fractures non-union. However, the potential of our drug is much greater. MMX701 studies indicated potential in treatment other bone disorders such as osteoporosis and rare bone diseases. And we are planning to pursue this indication, of course, but in time when we have R&D or commercial partner in place. As an exit strategy, we're considering licensing deals in the early clinical development phase. And to accelerate this development process, we are looking for strategic R&D or commercial partnerships that will lead to possible licensing or acquisitions in pharma involved in bone diseases with companies like Amgen, Merck, Roche, and others. In order to successfully achieve our milestones, we have a team of professionals, including support partners, with many years of experience in drug design and development in big pharma, animals and clinical studies, international patenting, FDA and other regulatory authorities communications, financial management, and CMC facilities. So currently we have a market where there's still no oral drug with a long-term use for delayed and non-union fractures. And we are offering our leading molecule that has been significantly de-risked to enter large clinical studies fast. That's as drug safety and efficacy were tested in both animals and humans, which truly makes our drug a rare preclinical asset with a high chance of getting accelerated registration leading to faster approval and commercialization. And
all right. I'm gonna have to cut you off. Sorry about that. But great presentation. And does anyone on our panel or any of our attendees have any questions for Kirill about this company, their molecule?
Yeah, Katie, it's Mark. I have a quick question on safety profile. I mean, I think with the introduction of any metabolic agent or small molecule, the number one question that comes to mind in a clinical setting is, you know, unintended adverse effects that in your animal models or early clinical experience have yet to come to the fore. Can you comment on how you're going to de-risk the concerns about safety profile for a new molecule?
So we've done a couple of safety studies, and currently there is the ongoing studies, toxicity studies, which we are making on rats, and we haven't seen any toxicity signature to MMX701 during these studies. So
and is this your timeline to FDA
yes.
approval?
Yes, for current indication, fractures of non-union, which we are we're expecting to get this orphan designation and certain indication to get accelerated approval, you know, based on our studies and clinical experience as well.
Great.
Thank you so much. Any other questions from the group, either our panelists or anyone who's joined us tonight?
Can I just clarify on the commercialization plan, where the plan is at present?
Well, we are raising money to pursue IND-enabling studies. Since the studies we've done, it was academical based studies, which was done under, you know, different protocols. So we are pursuing IND enabling studies under FDA guidelines.
Great, thank you. All right, we appreciate you being here tonight. Thanks for sharing Mesomax with us, and we are gonna
thank you so much.
Move on to Dr. Ben Schwartz, who's here tonight with Healant. And Kirill, if you'll stop sharing, we'll let Ben go ahead and share.
All right, can everybody see my screen?
We can.
Yep.
All right, go
All right.
ahead.
Thanks for having me. I'm going to present on Healant, which is a virtual care delivery platform for orthopedics. As Katie said, I'm Ben Schwartz. I'm a fellowship trained orthopedic surgeon, and I'm also the Chief Innovation Officer for the company. So we know that there's 33 million people in the US that have osteoarthritis, and we know that it's projected to reach 50 million in the next 10 years by 2030. Arthritis treatment is currently the #1 biggest expense for privately insured patients, and it represents about 10% of the total healthcare spend at about $150 billion per year. So the problem that we're approaching and trying to solve is that we've had this black swan event. A black swan event is an unanticipated, very disruptive event that happens to an industry, which we're currently experiencing in healthcare with COVID-19. When you couple that with what I call the anti-swan event, which is the arthritis epidemic, and the reason it's an anti-swan event is because where a black swan event is completely unanticipated, this arthritis epidemic we've seen coming, it's totally been anticipated. We know the baby boomer population is aging. So when you combine sort of the changes that COVID-19 has brought about and the acceleration of virtual care brought on by COVID-19 plus the arthritis epidemic, we now have an urgent need for engaging patient-centric technology to address the increasing demand for orthopedic care. So virtual orthopedic care is necessary because of the safety issues for patients and staff brought on by COVID-19. We also have a treatment gap for non-surgical patients. So we need to be able to optimize patients. We need to give patients the tools to manage their arthritis before they get to surgery, whether it's weight loss, diabetes, smoking cessation. Telehealth has become a buzzword, but the reality is it's likely here to stay. We know the reimbursement changes. There's a big push to maintain those after COVID-19. And that's going to open the door for virtual physical therapy and the idea of virtual check-ins through telehealth. Patient satisfaction is going to become increasingly important, and as well as addressing staff burnout and giving staff the tools to reduce administrative burden. Goes without saying that costs are out of control, and this is going to become even more important in arthritis care as these patients become more and more prevalent. And then there's a lot of models that have predicted that the demand for orthopedic care, particularly around arthritis, is going to outstrip the ability of the system to provide it. All these factors combine to increase the demand or the need for virtual orthopedic care. So our solution is Healant in the center here. This is an example of the provider-facing dashboard and then the patient-facing app. So the process is a physician or a hospital customizes the care protocols that they want, and they come up with their own guidelines. That gets onboarded into the dashboard. At that point, we have an AI coach that we call Healy, which is basically a bot or a series of bots that takes over, produces automatic alerts. It can monitor the patient remotely and help coach the patient through the care process, whether it's surgical or non-surgical. The patient then uses the app to follow their personalized plan, which again has been put into the dashboard by the physician or the hospital or health system. They can also include a care partner, whether it's a family member, an adult child, a friend that's going to help them through this process. The bot is there through every step of the way. So the bot continues to support the patient as they go through this care journey. In terms of the staff, they interact with the dashboard. They can monitor alerts in the dashboard based on the information that's coming through the app that's put in by the patient or is being tracked by the app based on what the patient is entering. This allows for timely interventions. It allows to escalate any issues to the physician as necessary because of the feedback that's coming from the patient through the app to the provider through the dashboard. And then over time, as this information is collected, the AI bot can continue to analyze the data, develop insights, intervene before problems become problems. And so that closes the loop of the pathway. Our journey in 2019, we completed a proof of concept with patient optimization that had a 4.5 out of 5 satisfaction rating. In the first and second quarter of this year, we approached strategic angels. We've rolled out the tech stack, so the product has been launched. In the third and fourth quarters of 2020, we're anticipating completing our seed round. We're ready to go live at 4 to 5 sites. We're in deep talks within Massachusetts with 2 hospitals and within Illinois with a health system. We're going to focus on our sales and marketing and data collection, as well as a provisional patent. Next year in quarters 2 and 3, we're hoping to get to a Series A. We expect to have 10,000 patients on the platform by then, and we're also looking to begin collecting remote patient data through a range of motion tracking device for knees. 2022, we expect to have 25,000 patients on board and then begin to approach employers and payers. And long term, we really feel like we've created a platform and really a framework for any type of virtual care, not just musculoskeletal orthopedics, but also bariatric surgery, cardiac rehab, OBGYN, any chronic health conditions, and other types of elective care. We feel that our platform can be applied to any of these aspects of medicine. The market size in total is about $85 billion. We're again on track to have 10,000 patients on the platform by next calendar year. Our go-to-market strategy right now is physicians, health systems, hospitals, and ASCs are our main target currently. We feel like we have some indirect competition, whether it's provider-facing platforms like Force or Seamless MD, or employer platforms like Hinge Health and Omada Health, but we really feel like our platform is applicable to any entities within healthcare, not just one side of the equation or the other, but really all sides of the equation.
Great.
So, thank you for your time. That's
Yeah. Dr. Schwartz, thank you so much for being here and presenting. We have a couple of questions for you. One, let me start with, what has been the impact on reducing the overall cost of this patient population? And then a follow-up question to that, what kind of EHR integration is required, and how has that process been going?
Sure. So I think the reduction in cost really centers around virtualizing a lot of the pathway. So within our app, we have the ability to deliver virtual physical therapy, and we have our own videos. If any physician or hospital or health system wants to onboard their own specific videos, we have the ability to do that. So that can really reduce some of the post-acute care costs. We also have a very robust optimization pathway beforehand to optimize patients. I think there's going to be more and more of a move towards not operating on certain patients until they're ready for surgery. So smoking cessation, BMI targets, hemoglobin A1C targets, all of that can be done through our app optimization. So we feel like we can get patients better ready for surgery and reduce complications. We also feel that through the bot and through these sort of remote monitoring pathways, we can help identify problems before they become problems. We can educate patients what to expect to keep them out of the ER, to keep them out of their primary care doctor's office, and really be able to interact with the care team. So we feel like there's a lot of different ways that we can impact sort of the episode of care, for lack of a better term. In terms of the second question, EMR integration, definitely in the cards for Epic as well as Athena. There's still some hospitals. In fact, one of the hospitals we're in discussions with in Massachusetts is still on medtech. We anticipate integrating with them as well. So EMR integration is definitely a big part of what we're looking to do.
Fantastic. Well, we have several more questions for you, but because of time, we will go ahead and send you those questions and get those answers for our attendees. But we really appreciate you being here today and your presentation. And like I said, for those of you that had additional questions, we'll get those answers from Dr. Schwartz and we will send them your direction.
Good job.
Thank you. Thanks for giving us the opportunity.
Absolutely. All right. If you'll stop sharing, our next, actually, we're going to take time for our second poll. So again, for those of you that are joining us, we have a few more questions for you. I think these are pretty specific to the field of orthopedics. So we would love your feedback on many of these questions. I'll give you a couple minutes for that, and then we'll move on to our next company. For those of you that are out there, if you would go ahead and interact with the poll, we would love to get your thoughts and ideas on these questions here. We'll give you another minute or two to fill that out.
Housewives of Beverly Hills, huh?
We had to throw a little humor in there.
Well, there's investing going on there, believe me.
Yes, there is. All right. We'll go ahead and pull that down and we'll move on to our next company. So we have with us tonight Dr. Damon Alavecchios with Rubicon, Orthopedics and Sports Performance. And he is going to talk to us about a new medical device.
Okay, great. Can you see my screen? Everything?
We can.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
First off, thanks to everybody for making the time, and I hope everyone's healthy. I'm Damon Alavecchios. I'm a board certified orthopedic surgeon, and my device is a cordless battery powered lithium ion battery powered suction device for small, low volume surgical cases, vet cases, dental. It is design and utility patent pending. We have currently 2 working prototypes and are seeking early seed funding in order to kind of scale up and get this thing to market eventually. So this is kind of a rendering of a couple of the devices, and it's, the problem is really current suction, at least in my OR, is kind of it's kind of cumbersome. It's it's not a difficult setup, but it's definitely not a seamless setup. And with this is like a power tool. And what's nice about it is it's intermittent, so it's trigger depression for surgical smoke and fluids like blood. It's very quiet when you're depressing the top trigger for the surgical smoke. It's actually less than 30 decibels, which is whisper quiet. Very lightweight. Currently, it's the chassis is printed. It's 3D printed with material called Onyx, which is chopped carbon fiber and nylon 12. But the final iteration is going to be something likely thermoplastic called Ultem, which is similar to PEEK, and it can be sterilized, in an autoclave, which is nice if need be. Essentially, it's fluid canisters, which are single use for that one case. It comes with a 250 cc and a 500 cc fluid canister. What's nice is it's got an LED operative field light built into the near where you attach the suction component. If you can see here, it's got a clear fluid canister. The fluid magazine itself is nice because you can actually see the indwelling fluid within it. It's got laser etching within it to kind of better estimate your blood loss, or just your fluid that you've added. You can subtract from that to get your blood loss. These are a couple of the renderings showing what the final component kind of looks like. It's got a ULPA HEPA filter built into it for the surgical smoke evacuation and exhaust. It does have a quick connect for the, if you need to route the actual wall or unit mounted suction and bypass the canister in case of high volume cases. It's got a drape holster which can attach, and so when you're not using it, it just kind of clamps onto the device, which is Velcroed onto the drape within the operative field. It's a 3D printed chassis. What's nice is the eventual plan will be to do buybacks or take some of the units back, because it being a thermoplastic resin rather than a thermoset, you can actually heat them and re-anneal them and print them later if need be. has a self-priming pump, which can be sterilized, twin trigger. This is kind of an image showing kind of what it looks like just printing out the chassis itself. And this is the Onyx. And one of the things is using additive manufacturing. We'd be able to scale up. There'd be low tooling. If need be, if we needed to scale up, we could eventually do, even printing the plug, the tooling itself, and then just doing injection molding if we had to. Yeah, that's about it.
Great. Dr. Alavecchios, thank you so much for being here, and thanks for presenting today. We have a couple of questions. What flow volume can you manage? And the second question is around what is the cost per use?
So flow volume is something we're currently working on. With a peristaltic pump built into it, it can actually, you can change the bead size on the pump, and as well as the rotational kind of their little bearings, and you can do 2 or 3, and depending on how you adjust that, you can, and the speed of the actual pump, you can fill a 250 cc canister like that in about minute and 10 seconds, which is, it's actually quite a bit. When you think about it, it's fairly rapid. And what's nice is the canister can be reused, can be emptied within the case if need be. And the all-in weight, even with a 500 cc filled unit with say water, is less than 2.5 pounds, which is pretty light. And it can be emptied out very rapidly as well, via the wall mounted port, or there's actually a release hatch in it as well. Second question about the cost. Currently that's still unknown. I'm not there yet, so I can't really estimate the all-in cost. I know obviously if you're buying, just for instance, where I'm at now with printing a single full chassis, not including the motor and everything, to do it with PEEK would be quite expensive. To do it with Ultem is probably about $13, for the entire unit, other than the canister and the metallic components like the motor, which is outsourced. Estimating that probably the cost per unit would be something like $70 all in, but that obviously that could vary.
All right. Dr. Alavecchios, thanks so much for presenting this evening. I did not mention this at the beginning, but we will be sending out additional information from each of these companies tomorrow. So again, we appreciate everyone that's here to present and everyone that's here to give us feedback and hear about new innovation and technology in the field of orthopedics, excuse me. So our next up is Soham Moore from Sympto Health, and you can go ahead when you're ready.
Absolutely. Thank you, Katie. It's a pleasure to meet everyone. My name is Soham from Sympto, and the set of slides I have prepared will kind of go through a story of who we are as a company and sort of what we're building. What's really interesting about us is we actually never started off wanting to grow this into a company. We were doing this out of a research lab at UC San Diego, working with the folks at MD Anderson. And just fortunately, over the past few years, we've been lucky enough to raise a few million from leading investors, including Kleiner Perkins, among a few other firms. So in terms of what I'm going to start off with is I'm going to start off with the backdrop on why we built Sympto. And what Sympto is it's a virtual care platform that allows nurses specifically to augment and automate a lot of their day-to-day work. And the rationale behind this all started with the advent of patient-reported outcomes, which around 2016 in oncology were the next big thing. Various papers had demonstrated how the active collection of PROs from advanced metastatic breast cancer patients could actually lead to millions saved for the center. But even more cool was it actually led to a 6-month overall survival benefit for those patients. Now, the two big detriments against patient-reported outcomes, which just to clarify, are basically surveys and questionnaires that patients fill out as they go through care. But the two big detriments for that were A, it actually added to a lot of the work that nurses had to do, where let's say you're a nurse at UC San Diego, you're responsible for ABC. Now on top of that, you have to ingest data XYZ, so that took a lot of time. The second big thing was geriatric patients, which is there's a subcohort of patients that as they go through care, they're just really hard to reach with modern technology. So at the lab we were working at, me and my co-founder Prithvi, and Prithvi has had a background working for companies like Stripe, Robinhood, Yelp, just really product-focused companies. We were really trying to solve those two key questions. Over time, what we built is we built a system that automatically sends patients what we call digital experiences via SMS text. And this was all queued to how far away patients were from their appointment event. So let's take something like a knee arthroscopy. Maybe your surgery is on Friday. On Monday, Sympto will send you a patient intake. Maybe on Wednesday, you'll get some preoperative materials to go through. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, there's a variety of pieces of materials that are exchanged to the platform. And basically all we did was we went into a clinic and we said, what are the different ways patients get engaged? What are the different outreach materials we use, whether they be worksheets, whether they just be different protocols listed up. And we took that and we created what's called an automated digital workflow. And this is all timed by how far away patients are from the appointment event. The channel in which we send patients was primarily through SMS text, but there was about 4 to 5% of patients that didn't have a smartphone or maybe were not comfortable with signing a waiver to use SMS text, so they preferred email approaches. But essentially the way this works is patients would get a link via SMS text, they simply click on that link, opens up a web browser. Like if I send you google.com and you click on that, just open up your web browser and it takes them to a digital experience. And that digital experience is essentially just a worksheet converted into something a little bit more easy to touch with, interact with, and play around with, like you see this preoperative worksheet over here. But then you may ask, what is the use of sort of these touch points? And what we've done is we start off as a services business where we go into the client and we collect all the different patient engagement touch points throughout the care episodes and we digitize them as you're seeing here. But the beauty of an approach like this is, let's say you have a nurse that spends about 20 minutes talking to a patient about their preoperative different instructions they have to go through 2 days before a call. Now, anecdotally, after we launched this checklist at the site we launched it at, that conversation actually got cut down by 10 minutes. And 10 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, but you can imagine that across each of these different touch points, the idea is we slowly cut off 5, 6 minutes of time that nurses and different clinical personnel are spent doing administrative work, such as rote calling, such as answering FAQs, XYZ. And on top of all of this, we actually have an NLP chatbot. And the way this works too is while these materials are being sent out, patients can actually engage with this SMS text channel. And for certain incredibly common questions like when is my first pre-op? When should I remove my dressing? How should I remove my dressing? Our chatbot actually answers patients and guides them through this entire process. And this could be directly via SMS text, or if I ask, how should I remove my dressing? And Sympto sends me another instrument, a web link that I can click on, and it can take me through education, surveys, whatever it may be. But fundamentally, the way we historically over the past few decades, EHRs and practice management solutions have done some really phenomenal things for scheduling, charts, and billing. But now we're at a time where as practices are scaling, we need different ways for nurses to be able to outreach with patients and in an incredibly efficient mechanism, allowing them to automate a lot of their day-to-day tasks and really focus on the few patients that need the most help. And that's what we're trying to do with Sympto, which is a thin layer that sits on top of these established systems. We have this engagement workflow that automatically runs, and then we output data back into the EMR for each of these touch points. And what's really exciting about Sympto is we actually started off as an API. None of this was on a platform, but at UCSD Health, what we did is we asked every nurse to create a workflow like this with different PRO questionnaires. At each of those touch points, there were certain triggers that if those triggers were hit, it would send a note in the EMR, or it would put something in a flow sheet inside Epic, XYZ. But after COVID-19, actually what happened is a lot of the practices we were at were suggesting we build a web SaaS tool, which clinical team personnel, nurses, XYZ, can actually log in. They can see all of their patients from their EMR. They can see the campaigns the patients are in, and they can use this web-based tool to interact with patients back and forth rather than the EMR itself. So I'm going to end there, and I'd love to open it up to any questions if you have any.
Perfect. So we do have one question around what is unique about your tech stack that can serve as a differentiator from those that are either within this space already or looking to come into the space?
Yeah, I think the main thing is primarily around hyper-personalization, which is every single hospital or clinic has different protocols in which they use to engage with their patients, and they're nuanced in that sense. So the special thing we built is we built an engine that can go in and take any sort of paper-based worksheets and workflows. We can digitize them into these discrete little instruments that patients interact with as digital experiences. And for a lot of these other companies, the way they traditionally work is they have 2 or 3 set workflows that have been validated, and they try to push those upon all the other sites. But we want to take the backward approach, which is every site we engage with, we allow them to customize what the workflow is, and we simply, in a matter of 30 minutes or so, can build these digital experiences just with various pieces of paper. So I would say that's our competitive mode, the ability to build this quality content and store it in workflows.
Great. All right, so we have 2 other questions quickly. What is your monetization model? And then lastly, for your chatbot, is this AI, and what domains does it search? And is it customizable?
Yes, so we have an internal tool that allows us to essentially go in and build all of these instruments. The same way we have that for, let's say, checklists or surveys, we have that for the NLP bot, which is you specify the queries that patients can ask as well as the specified responses. Now, this bot does not actively learn yet, but the idea is that there's just so many basic level FAQs that we can easily take out of the bat with simple responses. So that's what we're targeting first. But eventually the goal of the bot obviously is to incorporate active learning and incorporate different things that can make it more powerful. But right now, we just feel like the basic reply Q&A has not been answered yet. So we want to start with that and then move on. And yes, we do have internal tools that allow any physician or nurse to customize each of these queries as best as he or she sees fit. That was the response to the second question. I believe the first one was on monetization. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah, we charge a flat fee of per provider per year at the institutions we're at. And by provider, we're defining it as medical doctor. So let's say we sell into an ASC and they have 5 medical surgeons. We'll charge 5 times whatever the annual provider fee is. So it's typically around $1,500 per provider per year. So 5 times $1,500 for that year. And they have unlimited licenses to their clinical staff, so nurses, patient navigators, XYZ.
Great. Thank you so much for presenting here tonight. Again, if we have any other questions, we will get answers from you and send them out to the group. But we appreciate you being here and enjoyed learning about Sympto Health. All right, so lastly, we have, last but not least, I'll say, we have Greg Von Forel from Argyle Scientific. And Greg, look forward to hearing about orthopedic implants and infection prevention.
Excellent. Thank you for this opportunity, and thanks to everyone for sticking around to the end. So I'm Greg Von Forel, founder of Argyle Scientific. We're based here out of Akron, Ohio, and we kind of got our start at a local startup company, a hip and knee company here in Akron. And as we were talking to the surgeons, we realized that infections is still something that needed to be addressed with the surgeries. And so we set out to find the best solutions and to be the leader in infection prevention caused by orthopedic devices. And the reason we're doing this is because orthopedic infection is clinically and financially devastated. From a financial side, we're talking $10 billion in added annual healthcare costs. But then on looking at the patients, these infections that you go in, they're generally very, very successful. If you develop an infection, it could lead, in this case, like to amputation or even death. And so there's a lot of solutions, a lot of things that go into preventing infections, including keeping the OR clean, surgical procedure, and antibiotics, and they all do a very good job. But we still have to ask our question: well, if we have all these solutions, what's the problem? Why is this still continuing to happen? So looking into this and recently seeing us here at the International Consensus of Muscular Infection and ORS, they came to the conclusion that preventing biofilms and bacterial adherence is probably the only effective way to address this problem of infection. And the reason is once you've implanted these devices, it becomes a nidus for growth of bacteria. The bacteria adheres to it and it creates this biofilm, and the biofilm are more than 1,000 more times more resistant to antibiotics than just the free-flowing bacteria. So once these biofilms form, antibiotics basically is not effective. And so we realized if we want to be the leader in preventing infections, we need to tackle this first and prevent biofilm infections. So we went out, looked for solutions, and licensed a technology from Brigham Young University. Then this technology prevents biofilm growth by preventing the adhesion. And it's done through creating this carbon nanostructure on the devices. And this actually mimics nature. Dragonfly wings actually have this similar nanostructure, which bacteria doesn't adhere to. So they set out to mimic that through this carbon structure that prevents the adhesion. And this process that they developed is low cost and it's applicable to basically anything that you could put in an 800-degree oven. So all the standard materials that are used with orthopedic devices, the titaniums, the stainless steel. And so this technology can be used on all of them in all the different markets: spine, total knee, total hip, as well as trauma, extremities, etc. So basically current devices don't have this defense mechanism against it, the biofilm forms, whereas we will create this first line of defense through this nanostructure. And our strategy here is to prove the technology on the small scale and then grow in all the different markets that need the solution. Today, we have issued patents, peer-reviewed publications showing the success of the technology, as well as putting together an experienced team. Our next stage, in the C stage, we're seeking $750,000. And the goal of this is, number one, to show even further the clinical efficacy of this technology. And two, just prove from a business side that it makes sense as far as manufacturing and regulatory and strategy. And so to do this, we're partnering with Hospitals for Obstetric Surgery that's investing on the clinical side of things to do the research. And then we're looking for the seed stage development to go along with that. And we've chosen external fixator pens as our first device because they have high infection rates and low barriers to entry into the market. And at this point, once we have proven technology and proven strategy, then we can leverage our strategic partnerships that we've gained over the years to get into the markets with a higher barrier of entry, such as the hip and knee, as well as doing some of the smaller projects in-house in extremities and trauma, as well as seeking additional technologies to add to this to be a leader in infection prevention. We put together a team. I mentioned that core team is based out of Akron, Ohio, where we brought many orthopedic devices to market. We've added inventors of technologies, partnering with leading researchers and experienced executives. And we believe we are prepped for success and have great technology. And we believe that this is something that really needs to do. And that's why we're focusing on this infection prevention. We're grateful for this opportunity. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Greg. Really interesting, I think. Lots of interesting stuff here tonight. We have a couple of questions for you. How does the surface chemistry affect bone adhesion?
It actually promotes bone adhesion, similar to some of the new technologies, those nanotechnologies that see the bone ingrowth there. So you get the prevention of the bacteria, but also the enhancement of the osseointegration. So we have done that through research.
Great. And then we have one additional question here. Discuss the details of the IP and barriers to entry for competing companies.
So we licensed this from Brigham Young University. It specifically addresses the nanostructure on the devices. And so basically we will be the only people that will be able to create this nanostructure with the carbon for resistance of bacteria. And what was the second question? Sorry.
Discuss the detail. What are your barriers to entry for competing companies? Excuse me.
So I think the barriers to entry is with regards to sort of the claims that you're making with your device. You're competing against, combination devices, drug-eluting sort of materials. And in this case, because this is a structural resistance to bacteria, it's a 510K to strategy that you can quickly get to market once it's been proven safe and effective.
All right, and one last question for you. How will you know the biofilm retardant works, and what is your data turnaround?
So we have 2 phases set up here shortly with the hospital specialist surgery. 5-month turnaround on the first phase, and then following another 5-month and animal studies on the second phase. And they're leading that research as far as the efficacy. We have done some third-party testing through the University of Utah, but we're furthering that research now through the hospital for special surgery.
All right, Greg, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for presenting and helping us learn about Argyle Scientific's first product. Again, thank you so much to everyone who presented tonight. Greg, if you can stop sharing your screen. I just want to thank everyone, not only the presenters, you all did a great job, and it's really exciting to hear about all the new technology and innovation you're bringing to the world of orthopedics. I want to thank our attendees as well. And I do also, we would request that if you have the opportunity, there's a link in the chat multiple times for you to give feedback on each of these companies. And not only does that help AngelMD, but that also helps the companies get better and become more investable. So a couple of things, our next Pitch Club event is going to be 2 weeks from this evening. We would love for you to join us. It will be radiology focused companies, and we look forward to having you. You might have noticed that our last company, there was an advisor who is also part of AngelMD, Dr. Freundsen. So one of the things with Pitch Night is we love to hear from all of our clinicians on the network on startups that they may be advising or startups that they find interesting. So if you have, what I would say the next 2 are radiology and urology, if there are any companies that you'd like to see in the upcoming pitch clubs or the next orthopedic pitch club, we would love to hear from you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mike Raymer to talk to us about another great event that AngelMD is having this week. Oh, you're on mute, Mike.
I echo what Katie indicated. Great job. Really interesting product takeaways in my view. 3D printing is hot. We see that in a lot of areas, AI, bots, and it was interesting to see that all the startups are kind of picking at new leading technologies that are coming available for disruption. Over the past 5 years, we've really proved out the model of AngelMD, and this meeting in and of itself is evidence of that. Our own internal fund that we've utilized for investing in startups, we just did a review as a phenomenal return, internal rate of return over 40%. On Wednesday, we're going to host an event we're calling the AngelMD Showcase. It's at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. I included a link in the session. For those that are interested, simply click the link, sign up. It'll be an opportunity to learn more about AngelMD, the parent company. And also we'll talk about the fact that, we're very close to completing our A round. And one of the things that we want to do is we carved out the opportunity for physicians to cumulatively invest $2 million in this round. So follow the link on LinkedIn. It's at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. We'll also have a recording of that event available. We very much like to see, the attendance at that event push over 200 individuals. So thank you again for taking time out of your Sunday evening, and I'll turn it back to Katie to send us off.
All right, just one final thanks to everybody. Thanks to our AngelMD team tonight and all of the presenters. And those of you that joined us, we hope to see you in another 2 weeks. We'll keep you informed of what the theme is. And we look forward to our next pitch club. We'll see you in 2 weeks.